Hi folks, and a very warm welcome to my channel. I'm in my local town today, Falkirk, and I've booked a little tour of the local whisky distillery down here in the Camelin area. So let's go and have a look at the distillery. So my ticket for the Rosebank Distillery was £26, £25. It's an hour and a half tour. So just as you check in at the reception, there's a shop right next to the reception area. Selling all the different merchandises, Rosebank whiskies. And different gins here as well, Edinburgh gins. Some of these are quite nice. I've tried the Edinburgh gin before, and a lot of good flavours there. So the Rosebank was established in 1840. £2,500 those bottles. These are all the more expensive ones along here, all ranging up to £2,000.
This was a wonderful place to make wonderful whisky. Just not the way everyone else was doing it. James's unconventional approach resulted in a light and floral signature style for which Rosebank would become known. Being by the canal meant the whisky could easily be shipped out to blending houses in Edinburgh, Ireland and beyond. Even Brisbane, Australia, where 50 quarter casks landed in 1879 on the Clan, which had sailed all the way from Glasgow. As Rosebank's reputation grew, James handed the keys over to his son, Robert Rankin. Family was to play an important part in this story. Robert soon decided to expand, determined to build the most modern distillery in the land and do his father proud. By the 20th century, Rosebank was the top dresser malt in some of the world's finest blends. The 60s soon arrived, and with it, the first single malt, which helped Rosebank become known as the king of the Lowlands, a revered malt, sought after by whisky lovers worldwide. Through world wars and economic crashes, while many other distilleries were lost forever, Rosebank prevailed. That famous chimney continued to bellow right up until the 1990s, when Rosebank simply found itself in the wrong place at the wrong time. Scottish industries fell into decline, global whisky sales plummeted, and on June 30th, 1993, the last few casks were filled, and the stills went cold. The doors were locked, the gates closed. Darkness flooded the distillery. Rosebank's closure was described as a grievous loss by legendary whisky writer Michael James Jackson. But the years began to slip by. The distillery fell into disrepair. The magic fell between the cracks. Then, in 2008, Rosebank's mighty copper stills were stolen, and with them, surely, the last flicker of hope was gone. For 24 years, Rosebank slept, awaiting certain demolition, and what might have been the end of this story. But from the darkness came hope. In 2017, Ian MacLeod Distillers, owned by the Russell family, prevented Rosebank from being lost to the history books. Wake up, giant. It's time to make something beautiful once more. The distillery was back where it belonged, in the safe hands of a Scottish family. Founded by the Rankins, reawakened by the Russells. And just like James Rankin all those years ago, we had a vision. A vision to craft a modern distillery, guided by the whispers of yesterday. To help revive the Rosebank magic, our beating heart returned. 3 stills, meticulously crafted to the exact shape of the originals. Welcome home, old friends. But this was about more than preserving a legacy. This was about the people of Falkirk. To them, Rosebank was a vital part of the community and a great source of local pride. Something we are determined to restore, one cask at a time. So, what now? Now, we let whiskey on the shoulders of giants, the same way they did nearly 200 years ago. Now, against all the odds, we begin a new chapter of this remarkable story.
So that was a very good introduction to the tour. Now we're heading to the main distillery.
So that is the building James Rankin acquired all the way back in 1840, and the distillery has been expanding around this building here. We have our state-of-the-art 21st century distillery at the back there, what we heard in a moment. That's where that wonderful smell is coming from. Then out the window we have the timeless Forth Incline Canal. So when we reopening Rosebank, we first looked at the written records and old blueprints for the old distillery, trying to keep it similar as we could. Well, we also spoke to the local people who used to work here and live nearby. And it was their stories that helped shape our understanding of what Rosebank means to Falkirk, but also what Falkirk means to Rosebank. So we're going to go back a number of centuries to 1768, and that is when construction of this canal began. It took 22 years to build, over half a century. The waterways were the main transport system for Scotland. So they were created as a shortcut connecting Glasgow and Edinburgh, because before that you had to go all the way around the top of Scotland. So across the middle, a few canals connected together. A journey connecting the two cities would take about 9 to 10 hours back in the day. I've been stuck on the motorway. Not much different. It took me 2 hours to do a 40-minute journey yesterday on that motorway, so it's really not that much different. Might be more scenic going by the waterways once more. Now the part out here was a lock. It was lock number 11, which has now been moved further up the canal. And we had a lock keeper who lived on site, and a little cottage which is just tucked off the side of the building. So he'd be in charge of opening the lock gates when the barges would come in to drop off our supplies. We'd put on our casks of Rosebank and then go further afield. We did one that made it all the way to Australia. It was quite far for a cask of whisky to go back in the day. And horses would tow the barges as well. Very safe because the canal's flat, there's no currents, and they can pull 50 times more cargo than they could normally, so they could pull quite a lot. The tow paths that they used were now used for cyclists and walkers. We unfortunately don't have big Clydesdale horses walking past the window anymore. It would be beautiful to see once again. Now the canal was also vital for our distillation process back in the day as well. We used to use the canal water and use it to top up our worm tub condensers. I'll explain what they are when we get round to them, but the water was used for cooling purposes. Some people look at me absolutely horrified thinking that's the water that made the whisky. Definitely no. Nobody wants to be drinking that water. But a local man shared a fun story with us. That back in the day, when the water got too hot for cooling, they used to just empty it back into the canal water without a care in the world. The local children would see the steam rise from the water. They shout, "Rosebank's gone!" grab all their friends and jump in for a swim. For some, it became their weekly wash. I haven't been told that the water was still actually freezing cold. It really wasn't that much warmer than normal. You know how it is when you're young, if you don't jump in, you get pushed in. Sometimes better doing it in your own free will. Not something you see happening very often nowadays. You don't catch a lot of kids swimming in that canal water. Now today at Rosebank, we can use the canal water to top up the condensers if we wanted to. The system is in place to do so. But we no longer empty anything back into the canal water. We're very much aware of the environmental impact the temperature change to the water has. So it's a beautiful blend of honouring our heritage, but also ensuring sustainability for our future. And you'll see as we go round, we reuse and recycle everything we possibly can, trying to help save the planet as much as possible. Now we've always been deeply embedded with the local community, and we have always relied on our loyal workers to keep us going. Now can anybody hazard a guess how you would keep a distillery worker happy and motivated while they're at the work?
Give them a drink.
Give them a drink. So back at Old Rosebank, you're allowed 4 drams a day, and there's absolutely no limit to the size of the drum. So you can come in the morning and have your cup of coffee and fill up your mug. If you're really celebrating, you could grab the whole teapot from the staff room and fill that up 4 times in the one day if you wish. And this wasn't 40% whisky. We're talking the stuff that comes straight off the stills at 70%. How they got any work done, I have no idea. And I will say, we're no longer allowed this. Health and safety, you cannot drink actual beer. Most of us drive here now anyway, but how they got that whisky in the bottle at the end of the day, I have no idea after drinking all that spirit. But if you remember I said we had a lockkeeper's cottage. Well, we no longer needed him because the canal wasn't being used anymore. He moved out and maintenance workers used that space for storage and shelter. But they were not under a permanent contract, so there was no dram allowance for them. Now, I have heard stories of some people coming in and being able to partake in these drams, but I don't know who they annoyed because they were not allowed anything. They must have annoyed the wrong person to be told, absolutely not, you're not getting to touch this stuff. And they were searched every day by security to make sure they were not smuggling anything out. But as we all know, us Scots will always find a way to get away with it. They're a bit cheeky like that. When they went in to renovate the cottage, they found a tap on the wall that was not there before. And they filled the pipe, and I went straight to the spirit receivers, so they had spirit on tap the whole time they were there. The cottage is still there, but unfortunately the tap is not. I have wondered how we can get it back, but I think they would notice if we started to rip up their beautiful new distilleries. I don't think we're ever going to get that back, unfortunately. However, Rosebank is still here, producing some wonderful spirit once more. Before we head to production, does anybody have any questions? To make a Scotch single malt, all you need is your 3 ingredients. Anyone know what they are? Barley.
Water.
Water. One more.
Yeast.
Yeast. Barley, water and yeast. You all know it. There's nobody who likes to shout it out. You're like, I know it. So barley, water and yeast. And I think it's absolutely fascinating that every distillery in Scotland, and there's a lot of them, use the same 3 ingredients to make single malts, but they all produce such a wide variety of flavours and characters. This is one to do with how they're producing it, then 2, how they're maturing it. So we'll go through each ingredient as we go round because they're all as important as each other. So we're going to start with our barley. Like most distilleries in Scotland, we no longer malt our own barley here on site. It's very time consuming. We also need a lot of space. It's not one thing we have. We've got a road there and a canal there. We do not have space to have our own malting score. And again, it's really not unusual not to. I've done a little bit of research on this, and there's between 10 and 12 distilleries that still malt their own barley, and even then they're not using it in all their bottlings, apart from I think Springbank. They're only using it in a small percentage of their bottling, so it's really not unusual to source it elsewhere. But we pride ourselves on quality, and we source it from a local company called Crisp Malt, who are based in Alloa, out towards Stirling, about 15 miles from here. And they get all the barley from a 50-mile radius from around their plant, so everything's Scottish grown. They deliver 1,300 tonnes of malted barley to us each year, so it works about 27 tonnes once a week we go through here at the minute. So barley is cereal in its natural form, with sugar and potential. So inside that barley, there's little enzymes that we need to waken up that's going to give us sugar further down the line. And the grain in it's quite hard, it's covered by a husk, this outer shell. This is the barley sugar. So back to the process. Here you have our fermentation vessels, so they're called washbacks. They're made using Douglas fir or Oregon pine if you'd rather. They're both the same type of tree, just depending on where in the world you're from. Perfect for making these because these trees grow about 20 feet before they branch, so there's no knots in the wood. And they're built a little bit like a cask, so like traditional cooker ring, just the metal rings holding it all together, no nails or glue. Now if you've been to other distilleries, you might see they have stainless steel ones. Pros and cons for both. Stainless steel is obviously easier to clean. We use wooden ones because they're traditional. We're all about traditional. Look nice as well. A bit prettier stainless steel ones, but yeah. Does it affect the flavour? Nobody knows. Most people say no. It's not in there long enough. Not like a cask. It's not in there. So I generally don't know. I don't like to give my opinion on it. I just generally don't know. I've done a little bit of research on it. So in here, what we'll do is we will take our 15,000 litres of wort, cool it down to 18 degrees Celsius. The reason we cool it, if it's any hotter, the yeast would just die when we add it. So 18 degrees is the perfect temperature for that yeast to work its magic. And we use a liquid distiller's yeast here, so it's 15,000 litres of wort, 86 litres of that liquid yeast. Then there is a gap, because once you add the yeast, the liquid will start to bubble, fizz and expand. And that's the yeast eating away at the sugar and making alcohol for us. Now this process does produce carbon dioxide. They are well sealed, the distillery is well ventilated, and we have a pipe connected to each one, the one pipes that go along the back wall there, to take the CO2 out of the washback into the atmosphere. It's a very, very small pipe, we're not causing any harm, you just don't want it lingering about outside the washbacks. Now, I'm going to open this up to let you have a look inside and let you have a smell. There will be some CO2 still in there, so please don't put your head right in or breathe in too deeply. Get knocked off your feet. You don't need to come back out. Definitely not come back out. And if you have anything loose, like your glasses or anything, please make sure they don't fall in, because I'm not going in there again. Fuck you, that's them gone. And then they'll come back on Sunday and think this will actually make good thing. Every distillery will have one of these. One to control and monitor the spirit, and for taxation purposes. So, spirit will flow through each chamber. Each chamber goes with a still, so wash, intermediate, and spirit. The tall glasses at the front, they'll turn when the spirit's flowing through, they turn the little handles underneath, and they'll fill up from the bottom. Inside there is a hydrometer and a thermometer to check the density and the temperature, calculate that together, and that's how they get the alcohol strength. A bit too mathematical for me, but they know exactly what they're doing. It's one of the jobs that they still do manually, because the whole distillery is semi-automated, so a lot of it's done by computers and technology, but that is something that they have to do themselves, so you'll see them coming along and do things like that. The whole distillery can also be done manually as well, because let's face it, technology is not always the most reliable thing in the world, so if anything happens, everything can also still be done manually. Once I've checked the readings, I'll just turn the handle back and it goes back into the flow, so you don't have to open it to sample it. And this is where they'll also take cups of the spirit, so some of that spirit's going to run off quite weak. It's not going to taste really nice, you don't really want it. That's called your faints or your tails. I'll chop that off. You don't waste it though, it goes back out the still it came from. Give it another go, and eventually just goes into the liquid at the bottom to be recycled. On the other hand, some of that spirit is going to be way too strong, very volatile. It's where the saying blind drunk comes from, because back in the day people didn't know this and would drink it and eventually turn blind. Not stuff you want to be drinking. That's called the foreshots or the heads. Chop that off as well, again back in the still for another go. What we're interested in is what we call the heart when you make spirit. So think of it having a fish for your dinner. You don't want the head, you don't want the tail, you want that good juicy bit in the middle. That's 77%.
Tasting bar through here.
We decided we wanted to own a distillery in the late 90s, 2003, Glengoyne came on board. And we took it over, tasted the whiskey. Why is this not a single malt? This is incredible. And it was us that gave it a standalone press as a single malt in the market, and it's doing very well for itself. Your older Glengoynes, like your 18, 21, 25 older, are all sherried. The younger ones are a mix between bourbon and sherry. So mostly sherry casks that we use, we've slowly introduced bourbon, but also it takes a bit of time to get your strops up and things. 3 years in a cask or a little bit longer. And they can really experiment with their spirits. So they've got like your core range, so your 12, your 15, 18, and so forth. They have a legacy series, do cask strengths. They recently had brought one out that was finished off with a Mizunara oak cask, so Japanese oak. Limited edition, incredible. You get the chance to try it. They've also done a white oak as well. Glengoyne really shines in bourbon, really shines in bourbon casks. So the white oak, they use some bourbon and some virgin oak casks to really make that spirit shine through. It's pale as you like, it's incredibly pale, but it's a fantastic whiskey, so it's a really good way to experiment with the different different characters. Has anybody been to Glen? I know you've been to Glengoyne. Anybody else been to Glengoyne?
I'm not.
Definitely worth a visit. It's not far from here. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour. It's just north of Glasgow, sits at the bottom of Dungoyne Hill. Kildare, is that
That's right, Clare, yeah. I've climbed up the hill, but I've,
Yeah.
I've never been in there.
Never been in it. You walked past
Distillery.
it?
I've walked past it, yeah.
It's known as one of the most beautiful distilleries in Scotland. Very traditional.
Stunning.
Try and go on a nice day, because you're in and out of different buildings, and if it's raining, it's not that much fun. But if you go on a nice day, there's shop and everything is
There's a waterfall at the back of the distillery as well, which is nice to go and have a jam.
And it's also haunted. Properly haunted. Yeah, there's a ghost that haunts the grounds, and you guys have to talk to him, and you go into maturation and he flickers the lights and things like that, and as soon as he acknowledges there, he stops and goes away. If you believe in all that stuff. Happened when I was there, and the lights were flickering, and so it's apparently haunted. But I won't,
1st of October was.
but I won't tell you the story, just in case she's visit. So if you visit, you'll hear the story of the ghost of Glengoyne. But I used to have a girl that worked here, that worked at Glengoyne, and she had some weird and wonderful moments with this ghost. So definitely there's something going on there. But get a visit to Glengoyne if you haven't been already. Now, if you're still joining Glengoyne, that's absolutely fine. You can compare the two. But I'm going to take you up to Speyside now. Everybody familiar with Speyside region?
Oh, yes.
Perfect. Can't go wrong with a whisky from Speyside, can you? So, has anybody tried Tamdhu before?
No.
Yeah.
A few nods, a few shakes. It's a wonderful wee whisky. I love Tamdhu. So, we took over Tamdhu in 2011, also from Edgerton. So, it's Edgerton that owns Macallan. They wanted to reduce what they had and focus more. They say quality over quantity. So, let's reduce what we have and produce some wonderful, and let's face it, Macallan. Who doesn't know Macallan? Everyone in the world knows Macallan. Produce wonderful, wonderful things. That gave us wonderful opportunities. So we took on Tamdhu, like Rosebank. It's closed at that point, but not to the extreme. It's only closed for a year, so I need a lot of work done. And if you look at your Tamdhu, the colour, even though it's the same age, it's 12, same percentage, 43, it's significantly darker in colour. That's because Tamdhu only mature their whisky in Oloroso sherry casks from beginning to end. Very, very special. Again, if you give it a swirl, the legs on this one, they're a little bit thicker and a little bit slower, but not by much. Not a significant amount anyway. And on the nose, this one smells like Christmas time. Christmas cake in a glass, so nutmeg, cinnamon, ginger, orange with spice.
Definitely orangey spicy.
Yeah, you get that kind of spicy note to it. I love Tamdhu. And then once you've had a nose, have a taste of this one. Same nose, a few small sips. You'll find this one, I find it a bit sweeter and a bit softer on the palate.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, I add water to Glengoyne, I wouldn't add water to this. But again, personal preference, you do what you like. It's very good.
It's nice.
So during the tour, the whisky that we tried there was called the Tamdhu. It's various prices. If you've done the tour, a 12-year-old bottle, which is normally £56, is £50.50. Quite nice, that one. Did enjoy it. It seemed to be the bottle that everybody liked in the room when we were trying it. Well folks, a wee bit different today. My local distillery. Passed it as many times in the car, but this is the first time I've actually done the tour. So if you've enjoyed the tour today, if you can give me a big thumbs up, and if you could subscribe to the channel. Till the next one, bye for now folks.